Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. So, we've got a little afternoon delight episode here, coming to you in the middle of the day. Thankfully, we were able to move this. I do apologize. My travel schedule was going to get in the way of doing it, getting in the way of doing our normal time. So, it's just me and Tom today. Hey, Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, friends.
Tom, good to have you as always, sir. I hope you're doing well. I know we're also sort of
Thanks.
stepping over the toes of Martin, who's playing right now on Warhammer TV.
Indeed, I apologize, Martin. You're in turn 2 right now, still tied up with Nick, so it's looking kind of rough. We'll see how you turn out. Good luck.
Absolutely, we wish Martin all the best. It's awesome that he went to go there and he's getting to play that game. He's done. I know he spent a long time building his army, and he's a great dude. And I hope for the best. Make America proud, buddy. That's right. We wish him all the best. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to do a little Malign Portents tinfoil hatting. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation going around about Malign Portents, exactly what it's going to contain, what's going to happen, what does the world look like. There's been little hints and bits and stories and everything. So it's time for Tom and I to strap on our tinfoil hats and start making wild predictions about what's going to be happening so that way we can be laughed at later if anyone remembers to call us on it.
What we do best.
Absolutely. That's right. So get ready for half-informed opinions about things that are going to happen in the future. That's what we're going to talk about for our main segment today. But of course, first, it's time for the news. What do you got, Tom?
Oh, we have that segment, right?
That is your segment. This is where you talk.
Rumor engine.
Yeah, man. I got you. I got you covered.
Let's see that squig head.
It's not a squig head. You're out of your mind. We'll share up. There you go.
How is that not a squig head?
Because it's not a squig head.
Like, that's the ear hole for the squig. The eye is going to be a little bit up farther, and then that's like the little ripples in the bottom right is like where its mouth is, where like the skin is folding near its mouth.
I don't think this text. First of all, this thing is very small. Yes. But like we are way zoomed in on something tiny here. Mm. And like this patterning doesn't look squiggy to me. It looks sea creature to me. Clearly, this is your Cthulhu elves. Just another thing pointing at the Cthulhu elves.
We have more support for Cthulhu elves coming, by the way.
Exactly. It's clearly I'm guessing this is like a little pet on a Cthulhu elf base. That's my particular guess.
I still think it's Moon Clan.
I think you are so hopeful and so wrong.
It's true. I am both hopeful and likely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, it wouldn't be like what you're saying isn't completely crazy, right? Because I mean, we are getting a Moon Clan shaman as the herald, right?
Right.
So it's not like it's that beyond the pale that at some point in time there'd be an army that they really support for that guy's actual sort of thing he represents. I just don't see it. I don't see this as being a squig because that ear looks, or whatever it is, which I agree that's not an eyeball. I think they took this picture trying to trick you that that's an eyeball, but it's not. It's an ear hole. But I think it looks like a sea creature ear hole, and it's got the little sea creature scales, but they're so ill-defined because of the scope, the size of this thing, it being very tiny.
Sure. You can see brush strokes like along that top edge.
Yeah, you can see where like the wash isn't smooth, in between the bone and the thing itself here, that kind of stuff. So like we're way zoomed in here.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, to me, it says sea creature.
Show me that squiggy goodness.
An anemone. It's a sea anemone. That's what it is.
Yeah, show me that squiggy goodness. That's all I'm saying.
You're out of your mind. One of your later comments is going to relate to some past rumor engines. And I have a shout out to give at that point in time as well, but I'll hold so you can continue.
So open day happened this last weekend.
It did.
And no, hold on. Whoa, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the Malign Portents announcement day, which would have been Thursday.
God in heaven, that did happen after last week's show, didn't it? What a mess. Like, here's the thing. Where that went wrong was in ever having a countdown clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if all they had said is, we're going to put up the Malign Portents website on January, whatever that day was. What day was that? Like, the 4th?
Well, the timer set it to January 3rd. I suspect that they were actually setting it it was supposed to be on Saturday on the open day. If I were to take a guess, I'll bet somebody dropped a ball.
Yeah, I think you're likely right. That they actually like started the timer and then realized like
that it wasn't the open day.
Yeah, then somebody looked at it later and was like, wait a minute, this doesn't align. But they couldn't just put 3 days back on the clock. Everybody would have noticed, right? So I think you're absolutely
lost their mind. Everybody would have lost their mind. Like, what's going on with this clock?
Right.
But you could have just blamed it on Zinch.
Sure. The whole problem was the clock, because the countdown sets this massive expectation that you're going to have a reveal. Like, here's the thing. Forget the clock for a minute. Okay. Forget that level of expectation that's been set.
Yep.
I quite liked everything they had on the Malign Portents website. The stories were cool.
Oh man, it was great.
The videos were cool.
Great.
The explanation of realms was really good. Basically, it was like, hey, if you've never played Planescape, guess what? We're playing Planescape now, folks. So get into it.
Yeah, what we've been saying from the very beginning.
Since the very beginning, like literally the week it came out, I said, oh, I get it. It's like Planescape now. It's just Planescape, folks. So go look up how Planescape works, and that's how the Mortal Realms work. It's
definitely just Planescape.
Yeah, it's not. And that's not a hit on it, by the way. I'm not bagging on.
I love Planescape.
Originality. I love Planescape and good. And by the way, nothing in Warhammer's ever been original, so who cares? Like that's not why I like it. It's a world built on homage and borrowing of other good concepts and integrating them into a whole. But like I liked all that stuff. Like the little the map of Shyish was cool. All the little zoom ins were cool. So taken on its own, like forgetting all the build up, it was a cool site. It would have been a great like thing of like, here's how we're launching this thing. And Malign Portents site, if they would have just put up a news item that said, hey, come back and check us out on the 4th. We're launching the Malign Portents website. It's where we're going to start revealing information about the event. I think everybody would have been like, oh, okay, neat. And they would have looked and seen the initial setup, and that would have matched the expectations, and everybody would have been fine. Right?
Yeah.
But instead,
no, I agree.
They build up this countdown and quick like a quick shout out to Rob, to Rob Symes, who made mention of this. Like in their head, they know the whole sweep of what's happening, right?
Yes.
And so when they revealed this, they thought like, oh, we're really giving a lot away here, but they're not, you know what I mean? But it's hard for them to tell because they're so in it of exactly what people will be able to infer or know or whatever. So the point being is that like the countdown clock is where they went wrong. Period.
Yeah, I agree. And like again, if they had just shown this next image that I'm about to pull up, if they had just like done this right here, like if it ended and it was just this.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody would have been like, okay, this was worth it. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Just one image that they were already going to show 2 days later. That's all it would have taken. But they didn't. But that said, Legions of Nagash is coming, and this is awesome. Like I am so stoked about this. They've revealed that. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say this. There's a reason no one's still complaining about the Malign Portents thing. Like on Thursday, Friday, this was all a buzz on Twitter, right? Like everybody was like, blah, 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 I'm so angry.
Everybody was moaning. Yes.
And then this happened, and everybody suddenly forgot that ever occurred. like I forgot it sitting here, right?
Yep.
Because we all forgot, and all suddenly we're like, nope, never mind. Okay, we're good. Thank you. We're happy now. Also, by the way, called it. Boom. Credit where credit's due. We were discussing this like a month ago, and I said the death.
It was much longer than that. Much longer than that. It was a lot longer than a month ago.
We were discussing this some time ago. Yes.
No, I know what it was. It was after the GHP 2017, and we talked about the perpetual problem that Death has. And one thing that you pointed out was because if Death is monolithic, it really needs to be reorganized under the Mortarks.
Yep. And I said, what if they just did a split along the Mortarks and gave everybody their own forces? Like Nafarada has this stuff and Manfred has this stuff. And I remember people having a mixed reaction to that. All I can say is, boom. Haha, I got one. I'm going to ignore all the other ones that I didn't get, but this is one I got.
Indeed, indeed. They basically said that they'll have the rules for like general death, basically there's no new models in this. They've been very clear about that.
Well, I want to hit on that point. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the exact quote in the article was this book contains rules for all death rules or points or whatever for all death models released. Begin parens for now, ellipses, close parens. Okay. Yeah. This should tell you two things.
That we may get a death release before this drops.
No. We'll get a death release after this drops. Okay. They're not they didn't spoil this and not give you the death.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get a death that should tell you two things. The first, we are going to get a death release after this book. Okay. That should immediately make you think, well, wait a minute. Why would they then release this book if they're going to then put death out? Wouldn't this book then be missing them? No, because this book is called The Legions of Nagash. So that means that the second thing you should learn is that the coming death faction is not loyal to Nagash for the same reason that the Flesh Eater courts aren't in here. Okay. Aren't featured as one of the allegiances in here.
Yeah, maybe. And the reason why I want to push back, and we'll talk about this with Malign Portents, they've already said that the narrative will continue to evolve throughout all of Malign Portents, and it'll go across all products. So the website, the books, so it'll have a campaign book, but it'll have battle tomes, and they said everything. It's going to weave in and out of everything that's going on. Absolutely. And if like Nagash develops new tools or new weapons, that's going to happen. That'll be a new battle tome. That's not what this is now at the beginning of
it doesn't make sense to me. You still wouldn't put this book out here and call it this. What's going to happen in that story? Well, we're already jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Because this has to do with my own theory on it. But to me, that just says the subtext of that reading between the lines is absolutely there will be a new death force. It will not be loyal to Nagash in some form. And it will, and my point is it will come out of Malign Portents. It will be an evolution of the narrative. That is what I am alleging.
Yeah. And we'll talk about this more. We do know that those three factions are the three, like, so that they had like Death, they had these three, and then they said they would also include Soulblight in another one of the factions. So one of the allegiances that we saw already will show up again in here. They said, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, I would assume, since we've already taken the three Mortarks and Nagash himself and the Soulblight, I would assume the last is Death Rattle.
Without
one that makes sense.
Right. Without a massive reshuffling of keywords, I would anticipate that what we'll see with the three Mortark armies is something akin to what we saw with the Firestorm armies.
Right.
Where it'll say, like, you can make anything from these factions together and it has this ability.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably what we're going to be seeing here. Interestingly, in the stream today, talking about Malign Portents, the book came up and they were talking about the Mortarks, and they said that, they're going to focus on the three Mortarks that we know. The Mortark, somebody asked if the Mortark of Shadows is going to show up in this, which is Krell. Is that Krell? Was Krell Shadows or was
I don't know.
Anyways, yeah, they said, they asked about a specific Mortark, and they said no, we're going to focus on these three for right now and flesh those out. But there are other Mortarks out there. And so they acknowledge that, like, so I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to, like, new battle tomes are just unveiling, like, the new Mortarks and their legions underneath them. So that wouldn't be surprising. The other thing I thought was interesting was that he talked about what each of the, like, the Mortarks are doing and what their focus is. And he talked about New Lomnia is obviously under Neferata. And one thing that he kind of alluded to, he said, yeah, it's full of pyramids and all that other stuff, like what her homeland. And I was like, interesting. I know my theme already.
Everybody's trying to backdoor in Tomb Kings. That's the goal.
Everybody. Today there was a question on the Malign Portents feed of were the Crimson Monarchs going to show up in the Malign Portents event? So for those of you that don't know, the Crimson Monarchs, that's the only blurb we have of Tomb Kings. And it showed up in like one of the Ogre battle tomes. Yep. Like the Ogre, like the Beast Claw Raiders. Like in their timeline, a bunch of Crimson Monarchs came, like skeletal chariots came and like devastated all the ogres and hung, they had reigned for thousands of years. And so everybody got excited about the potential for that. And so somebody asked that and they're like, we're not going to explore all of our death IP in Malign Portents. But he like fully acknowledged, he's like, we're not going to do that, but that is a thing that we know about and that could be a possibility in the future.
Sure.
So that was a fun call out. Anyways, so we'll be talking about more of this here coming up soon. Other stuff for the show. Everything Nurgle is happening right now.
Yep.
Like we're in the heat of it. We have pre-orders, like a bunch of news. All the reviews dropped. Like Facehammer, Mangle has something up on his blog. Chris Tomlin did something on TGA. Like it's like the full court blitz is going on for Nurgle right now. It looks strong. Vince and I had talked about this. We had a conversation about this earlier today. I think it'll be strong. I think it'll show up in the tournament scene. He seems to think that it's going to be more dominant than I do. Would that be an accurate statement?
I do. Yeah, that's fair.
Like I think it'll be representative.
I think it'll be surprisingly potent.
I think it'll be representative. I think it'll show up. I don't know that's going to dominate top tables. We'll see. I mean, I think there are some lists that will. I don't know that all of it will, though.
Well, I mean, it's never all of it. It's a question of whether all of Tzeentch isn't very good, but Change Host is real good, right? Like, I mean, that's not what we're talking about. I mean, it's going to, like anything, it's going to take a while to crack that nut. So, like, it's not like I would expect the week after it drops people to go, yep, this is the list. This is it.
Sure.
Like, that's not how these things work. KO was like the best thing in the world, then the worst thing in the world. Then it just, now it's really good again. Nothing changed, right? It's just like, this is all over the place.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see Nurgle as it continues to develop and release. We'll probably do a Nurgle show next week. Does that sound right, Vince?
Yeah. Yes.
We'll have a battle tone in hand, and we'll probably do a Nurgle show.
That would be the plan. Yes.
Yep. For other things that are going on, congrats to Jack Armstrong from this weekend. Congrats to Vince as well.
Boom! Call number 2. Woo!
Yep.
Nailing it this week.
If you all remember from last week, I called Gary Percival. Vince called Jack Armstrong, and Relian called Tony. And Vince was right. Vince won.
I win. I win virtuously somehow. Like
good job, Vince. Jack.
Thanks. I was very happy with my performance.
Jack
in my fantasy Warhammer league here, apparently, is what's going on.
Jack piloted that list very well, and he murdered people. He had a couple close games from what I heard. There was I've heard a lot of good things all across the board of the matches from that weekend. You know what list did surprisingly well? The Wanderers list.
Yeah, man.
I'm pretty sure it beat Tony. Like the Change Host list, because he just popped in and sniped all the stuff and then teleported away.
Well,
it's like,
that's what we said during the show. That's what I said was, I don't know if I said it. That's what we said. Somebody in our group said it. That it was very dangerous to Change Hosts because they could just like show up and kill those stupid birds and the relevant pieces, the Gaunt Summoner, and then just be like, we're out later. Zoop. And that's what they happened. So, yeah, I mean, that's cool, man. I was super excited. Like they did, it performed quite well.
Dan Ford placed second with Murder Host.
Yep.
The Gary took third with KO, and I think the fourth was actually a Fatesworn. So it was the Sale Fatesworn.
Yeah,
large gas warrior block.
Yeah, the good Fatesworn. No offense. The one that I called last week. I'm just saying that that was the one that I labeled as my favorite. Yeah. Like that was the list I said was my actual favorite list, although I didn't think it could win the overall thing.
Right. Well, it did well. Yeah, it's interesting. Jack recounted that fight because he played against it in the one in a podcast I'm going to mention here in a couple minutes. And,
yes, you're just trying not to spoil your pick of the week since you already went ahead and spoiled mine, but that's fine. That's okay.
No, but it was really good. It was interesting to hear him, and yeah. Anyway, so I will say it's interesting to hear the matchups and how things ended up going. It seems like Gary maybe didn't have enough firepower to take out when Gary sat across from Jack.
Oh my God. We all know where this is going.
He left that Relictor on 1 wound.
Yeah, and I'm sure what Tom is next going to lead into, because I know you've already said this to Gary. You've already if only you had spent that 140 points on the, or whatever it was, on
240.
Yes. On the battalion and the guy, maybe you could have done that. Yeah, but then maybe you would have lost something else. That's not how it works.
I didn't say that, Vince. I didn't say anything along those lines. I just said that it's unfortunate that Gary didn't have enough firepower to kill that Relictor. Jack might have lost.
Yep, that's fair. I'm sure that's all you were implying, Tom. Nothing more.
No, I will say I did talk to Gary a little bit, and he had some unfortunate dice rolls, which that's what happens when you play games with dice. And so, but yeah, I still have lots of faith in the KO and what they're able to accomplish. Yep. What else?
Well, clearly, they came in third, so I'm thinking that's still pretty solid in that field. Yeah, that feels like a pretty great showing. Like, I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about coming in third there.
No, and he lost his sixth game as well. He actually lost against Sylvaneth. So he lost against Jack, and he lost against Sylvaneth.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. What else? In both those instances, he failed his charge. His charge or his grapple roll. Like 3 dice under 4s.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, mathematically, that's like 13% or 12% or something. So
yeah, 12.5%.
Yep. So, so with that, those that are furiously painting up their Vanguard wings, I've also caught wind of that we may have an FAQ dropping here in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That may or may not be addressing Vanguard wing and a number of the other outstanding issues that exist because nobody likes, enemies setting up in their midst and smashing their face off. So it'll be interesting to see what is on that FAQ. I've heard it's a pretty hefty FAQ. It's probably a very large one that could influence the game significantly. They had mentioned in their announcement for the 40K FAQs that they're going to be on a 6-month rotation. And I thought it was interesting that AOS has essentially been on this rotation for a year if this is the case. Because we got a huge FAQ in January, February. And then we got a huge FAQ when the GHB released. And then now we're going to, we're 6 months later again, and it looks like we might have another kind of addressing FAQ. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if they sample points as well. Like, hey, we're thinking about doing some trial points with changes on units. Hey, those Relictors are 120 now, or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. So, what else? All kinds of news. All of the news. Other future news that are interesting. On TGA, there's a conversation that went on where an individual from another forum had called a number of releases back in November. And in these releases, it was a pretty large 6-month rumor schedule. And he identified in the big, the earliest, aspect of that. Most of the rumors for 40K here, but he said the biggest aspect of that, he said that in January, Chaos Demons were coming to 40K, as well as the same month we'd see Custodes. And everybody's like, we haven't gotten any rumor Custodes. A bunch of people called shenanigans. Well, the reality is that's where we're at. That, and so, which then lends to more information that may be of significant. He said that, the first half of February is Custodes, the second half Thousand Suns, the first half of March is Tau, the second half of March is Necrons. Now, again, this is mostly 40K related. This doesn't mean that we don't have AOS releases in the midst of all of this. Right. We just may not have any large army releases in the midst of all this. He did say between April and May, Drukhari and Aralichi,
which is like some kind of Eldar.
Eldar. So 2 Eldars and 2 new Elven armies for AOS.
In April, May, right?
In April, May.
So April, May is just like the elvish explosion. Just like elves falling out. They're in space. They're in the mortal realms. They're everywhere.
In the darkness. They're in the death realm. They're everywhere. Elves everywhere.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that checks out. Like I'll buy it. Like that's fine. It like we've heard rumors of these freaking elves forever. We've been staring at. That would be more than a year since we saw the first rumor engine picture that looked like one of those little Cthulhu elves. So yeah, sure. Why not? A year and 2 months later, a year and a month later, whatever, something like that. I'll buy it. I think it would be great. It'd be great to see anything that the community team posts on Facebook that the first response isn't "Where's my death and where is my elves?" That's the day I look forward to more than anything. If they could do a hat trick and follow that up by releasing Plastic Sisters.
Yeah.
And like then nobody would have anything to talk about on the internet anymore.
Indeed. So yeah, it's interesting. The Custodes resolved 4 rumor engines, by the way. I was looking for the image to see on those jet bikes if I could find the
well, so let me before you get into that. Yes, it resolved 4 rumor engine images, many of which were attributed to other things. But I want to give a shout out here to Bjarni. Bjarni on the show where we reviewed the long flowing hair that everybody said looked like elvish hair. I said looked like elvish hair. Or something like that. I went back and looked at the comments and scrolled through all of them. And in the comments, Bjarni had said, here, I'll lock on you, John, so you can see us. Yeah, that hair right there. In the comments, perfect. Yeah, in that hair. Bjarni was the only one, and he commented, you know, Custodes have hair like that too. Could be Custodes. Amazing. What a call. Like, just absolutely out of left field. Boom. Nailed it. So, grats to you, sir. That's a heck of a call. You get the no prize. But yes, like, obviously the thing we thought might be terrain is actually the little engine of the bike. I don't remember, like, the eagle thing.
The lance was, everybody thought elves because of the filigree.
Right. The eagle, everybody thought Stormcast or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, they were half right. It's just, these are just space cast.
Stormcast in space!
Exactly. You can't fool me with your space cast.
I have to say, it's going to be an expensive month on my end.
Yeah, because you got a Custodes army, so I'm excited. I assume you're going to pick up some of them jet bikes or whatever, because those things do look sweet as all get out. Like,
well, here's the honest part. Like, and they confirmed that the 40K, the Forge World rules were coming.
Yep. And all those cool vehicles are going to come into
the
like
jets
into 40K.
And the tank.
Yeah.
I went and I priced it out, and I'm like, that's a used car.
Well, we'll have to get you up here for a good game of 40K soon. I just had a great win this last weekend and was triumphant with the sisters. So there you go.
Good, excellent. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be an expensive month."
Yeah, because you're gonna be picking up Nurgle stuff, Custodes stuff. You'll probably get that Death Battle Tome for sure. I mean, you're not gonna not get that. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah. Like, I will certainly buy that. There's no question on that one.
The only advantage to the Death Battle Tome for you is that it probably won't inspire any purchases since you already own like all the Death models. So there probably won't be anything you need to buy out of that.
No, like I have like 15,000 points of largely unassembled Tomb Kings and other Death stuff and bits. So like I could convert anything that I wanted to do New Lamia related. So I probably wouldn't need to buy anything. But
so you got that going for you, which is nice. There you go.
Well, I mean, I have an army that, and I'll talk about this as a hobby time, like that has just grown an offshoot that I did not anticipate a week ago.
Here, Tom, rotate. I'm going to lock on you for a second. Sit in your chair. Now rotate to your right. Go stage right.
Oh, like this way?
Yes. Not more. No, no. You're doing the right thing the first time.
Oh, this way.
Other way. There you go. Stop. You can see what it has led Tom to do. Like, as the big bottle of Glenfiddich or whatever is there on your table, you're like painting this army is driving you to drinking. You're going to end up like the Sustainable Center soon, where you could tell how deep into a project he was by how low the alcohol bottles were on his work table behind him.
Well, like, to show how bad this has gotten, let me be very clear. Look at my floor. Those are all bits. Like, all of the bits box came open. Like, my Anvil Guard box. Like, everything. All of it is open.
Oh, my God, Tom. That's a nightmare. You live in a nightmare.
Yeah, my workspace exploded last night because I was like, you know what? Not doing a second unit of 30 Volkites for February. So, where do we go from here, indeed? Yeah, so I'll talk about that at Hobby Time. But yeah, where were we going? It's going to be an expensive month.
We were talking about the rumors of the elves in April, May. So I totally buy it. I'm excited. I hope that they feel. To be honest, I hope both feel completely new, and I think they probably will. I hope one of them. I hope we are wrong about everything we've heard, on at least one of them. That is to say, like. What I mean by that is, like, I think the Cthulhu elves, that's a cool idea. Go with it, do it, whatever. But I would really love to see something I didn't expect. I like it. Like, I wasn't expecting the Overlords. And even though the army has no interest to me, I think it's a great addition to the world, and it fills out the flavor of it. And by the way, that doesn't need to be the same thing. I don't need, like, high technology elves. Like, what I mean by that is just explore an interesting corner of the realms through these elves. You know what I mean?
Would you consider death elves, like dark magic? Not Cthulhu, but like
dark elves. Yeah, like death elves. Death elves.
Death elves. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Like an ancestor religious like thing with like skeletons and
yeah, they would just be the elves from Eberron, but sure.
Yeah, that's actually what I have in mind when I say yeah.
And that's fine. Yeah, I'm totally about that. Those are death elves. They're death worshippers. Their leadership is all dead dudes who are, sort of animated by good magic and not evil necromantic magic and blah, 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 blah. Like, there's probably 20 interesting ways you could take it. I would love to be interested in something the elves are doing because at this point, like, whatever, like, make them have traction in this new world and explore a corner of it with them.
So, and oh, by the way, the other thing in that set of rumor engines for like what's coming, they said May. I think it was May. They said Slaanesh.
Yeah.
And I've also heard Slaanesh elsewhere. Like the May timeframe is Slaanesh.
Well,
that's like by May, June, we may have a Slaanesh release. And if that is indeed the case, let me point something out. That's right where one of those elf factions is releasing. Let's be very clear about that.
Sure, that's true. I've heard some people say that they didn't think Slaanesh should be this year because, like, the Chaos Demons have or the Chaos Gods have kind of gotten a year.
Yeah.
My argument would be, I think that 2017 was supposed to be basically Nurgle, right? That it's actually the 40K that's kind of led it along. Like there was months in between Tzeentch for 40K and Tzeentch for Fantasy, and there was months in between Nurgle for 40K and Nurgle for Fantasy. I think they had intended to release Nurgle for Fantasy at the end of the year.
The fall.
Yeah, and the production design backed up because of the aforementioned issues they had with meeting demand and the new
molds.
Thank you. Yes. And all of that. So I suspect that was actually all supposed to be shipped last year. Because this is a big release, and to stick it in January is like right after Christmas is sort of a strange timing for it. It's not a bad timing from a retail perspective. Like, people have Christmas money and want to spend it.
And they spun out a good, like they marketed it well with like the new Nurglemas and they capitalized on all of it.
Yeah.
But
they let you know at Christmas. Like, they let you know at Christmas, hey, that money you're getting, why don't you save that? Because we got something coming in a couple of weeks you're going to want a piece of, right?
Yep.
So I don't disagree with any of that. So my argument has always been that I felt like Slaanesh was still on the table for this year. Now, I'm not overtly hopeful. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
If we got to the end of this year and didn't see it, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Can I well, I should probably save this for our Malign Portents.
Okay.
But what if, I'm going to throw this random thought out there. What if the Malign Portents aren't pointing to what Nagash is doing? like the whole buildup is towards Nagash, and then like Slaanesh pops out and be like, "Gotcha, bitch!"
Sure. Tricked you.
Like they were instead pointing to Slaanesh's return rather than pointing towards what Nagash was doing. Like this whole buildup is like, "Oh, Nagash, he's gonna ruin the world," and then suddenly it's like, "Nope." Ha.
I would be totally fine with that. I would be fine with them defying my expectations. I have no interest in that old dusty pile of bones, but I do have a great interest in Slaanesh. Here's my argument. I don't think Nagash, like, I don't know that you, I don't think you're right there, but I don't think Nagash is ultimately what these Malign Portents, what the Malign Portents thing is all about. I think that the Nagash is sort of, okay, in the end times, Nagash was book one.
Hey, can we let's transition. Let's move to the we're going into theory crafting. Let's finish
let's get through this. Yes, that's fine. And then we'll get into
That's it. Like we don't have any other news.
Great. Pick of the week. What do you got?
Honest Wargamer did a Unpacking the Masters with Jack Armstrong, who won. Go watch it. Jack walks through all of this stuff. They talk about balance. They talk about the current meta. It's just a great overall podcast if you want to become a better player.
Nice. But I think you might want to phrase that as more competitive player.
Nah.
That feels like
it's the same thing, right?
Sure. I feel like you might have attached a bit of normative definition there that is, or normative annotation that isn't necessarily there. But just a thought. My pick is actually going to be for Tyler Mangle's Maggotkin Battle Tome review. I thought it was a really good review. Tyler's been a fan of Nurgle for a long time. I mentioned before that he's painted Nurgle and had Nurgle models and stuff for years and years and years. He won a Golden Demon with his Plague Bearers back in, I think, 2013. Maybe even before that, 2012. I don't know, something like that. Yep. It was a while ago. But it was, I mean, he's been a great painter for a long time, so it's hard to remember. But the point being is that he has a really nice review of it. And Tyler has a really nice way of looking at things and examining a battle tome. He's made his own. So he has generally a good lens to review these things through. And I really like his review. So I'll link that and the Honest Wargamer below. So hobby time, Tom. We already saw a little bit of your hobby time. What are you working on?
So like I've been working through these, the Fire Slayer, this block of Volkites, and like just the detail and the freehand and everything. Like I love it. I love what I've done. But I've been tinkering with my list already and realized that the second block wasn't necessarily needed. And if I dropped like one thing, it would let me drop another. And so I started like going through the numbers and all that. And I just realized that I may need another solution to fill their spot in my list if I don't do a second block of 30. And so suddenly I like lightning struck last night. Sigmar and his muse showed up apparently. And so I went on a whole nother start of converting 30. I'm doing a block of 30 Longbeards. So, and I realized that I had 30 like bodies for Ironbreakers. And when I painted my prior 10 Ironbreakers, I really liked the look of them. I liked painting them. They were like a joy to paint. And so I thought, you know what, maybe after I get done with this block of Volkites, I might jump over and do some Dispossessed and kind of expand my army out that direction. I wanted to do something that's like within the lore of my like Skyport stuff, you know, for my, and I just thought it would be more interesting rather than having a bunch of the same type of unit to kind of diversify and do some different stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be, I don't know if this is ever really going to show up at any events, but I don't know. I'll enjoy it. I'm enjoying it. That's what I'll say. I've been just building and cutting stuff from sprues and everything the last day or so.
Nice. Me personally, I am finally into my big project I've been prepping for a long time. I'm super excited for it. I'm loving working on it so far. I actually finished one piece of it. It's over in a cabinet, like right over here, because it's going to have to sit there for a while while I work on the main piece of it. I'll show this because it won't say anything other than you'll know what the base of the thing that I'm working on is. But obviously anybody who knows 40K knows what this is the main body too.
The chassis too, yes.
Yeah, the chassis too, exactly.
The cockpit, yes.
But once again, we're into another one of these, and I'm very excited about this one. I already made the base, which is over here, and so we got that going on, and or at least that's a good start on the base, I should say. And so this is going to take a while. It's going to take long enough that for the other component of this that I finished, I had to go put it in a cabinet so it wouldn't get dusty, because I was like, this is going to take a while. Like, settle in. You know, I got some of I got the base sort of tones down last night, and then went through and, you know, applied all my oil washes earlier today, which are still drying right now. I mean, you have to let them set forever, because if I just put some white spirits in a brush to this thing, I could just peel oil off of this thing right now. But the long road begins of like, just with all this metal, like I have to, you know, so there was the base setting of it with the airbrush, then there's the oil wash, then we got to go back in and detail, then I got to go back in and weather, and then we got to pick out all the details, then we've got to go in and weather. So that's just one component of a much larger beast here. So it's going to be a long road. Expect probably that I'll be working that the next couple weeks. I'll be saying that, but you know, there we go. So, and this will be a converted Titan. It's not going to be stock like that one. So there you go. All right. So now, shall we begin the tinfoil hatting? Shall we begin the wild speculation, Tom?
Yeah. So GW helped us out, by the way, earlier today. They did an entire segment on the lore of Malign Portents and what they're willing to share and what they're not. To do some kind of ground setting, some big picture stuff.
Yes, I think you should. I think you should lay some groundwork.
Okay, so they opened today and just said, you know, Malign Portents is going to be, you know, people had asked if it's like an event, is this a set of campaign books, and the answer is like kind of yes, kind of no. They said it, you know, this is going to be a season. This is a whole season. It's, you know, you will get short stories. This is not a one and done book. And these short stories and these little bits of information they're going to see this is going to be going on for a while. And when I mean a while, right now, rumor has it, you know, that this whole event, this whole season that we're in will last probably about a year. Okay, of a wide sweeping stuff. They didn't say this in the stream, but I've heard it from other sources. Is that this whole kind of season is going to be that. Now we'll have a season of war starting up mid-February, I think. We'll contribute to the campaign and we'll participate in all that other stuff like we had with the prior season of war. And this will determine the fate of kind of the Warhammer world going forward. Who wins this will actually set in motion kind of the next steps of the narrative. And we saw that with the last season of war. Now, what they said is, so what's actually happening is that, you know, all around the realms, people are having weird visions, prophecies, and dreams. They said none of it bodes well. All portents are portents of disaster. Something nasty is coming, and people know if they don't do something about it, it could be the end of, you know, life as they know it. The world is changing.
The world is changing.
Yeah, and everybody's involved in this whole Malign Portents thing. Like, we will see a book at the outset. I would anticipate that might be beginning of February, is I guess when we would probably see that, if I were to take a guess. You know, in this kind of background, they opened with saying that they kind of did a detailing of Nagash. Nagash is an actual god of death now. He reminds us, Phil today on the stream reminded us that, like, Nagash's origins, like, you know, obviously he started out in, like, Nehekara or whatever, like the Tomb King, Khemri. There we go. And he was a priest. Another interesting tidbit that he dropped is he said, you know, he was originally a priest wanting to, like, extend his own lifespan and stuff like that. And he encountered a group of people, death magic. Vince, we had a conversation about this. Who are those people?
The Dark Elves, effectively.
Yeah, Druchi were the ones that taught Nagash his death magic. Dun, dun, dun. We may be returning to this later. And then he talked about how, like, he's been slayed before by the Felbade, Skaven, stuff like that. You know, he's an amazing ability to come back. In a sense, he's a true immortal now. They kind of jumped forward to the Age of Myth, so post-End Times, and talked about how, like, when the whole universe came over, Nagash was actually stuck underneath a mountain. Okay?
I hate when that happens to me.
Yeah, you're stuck under a mountain.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then Sigmar showed up and
has to generally make fun of me and get me pretty angry so I can lift it up. That's usually how I get out of that situation.
Totally. And it was actually Sigmar who came and like removed rock by rock and moved this mountain literally off of Nagash and Freedom. And then they became like friends, on again, off again. They, you know, their common enemy being chaos during this prehistory. And they said that even some of Sigmar's cities were built by Nagash's skeletal hordes. And that they were once populated by both the dead and the living side by side. Inevitably, Nagash betrayed Sigmar. But in turn, Sigmar had also betrayed Nagash. And so, and we'll probably, it sounds like we'll learn more about these dual betrayals that happened between these two. When they asked who Nagash's enemies, who his top enemy or enemies are, he identified Sigmar as one and Archeon as the other, as these embodiments of basically order and chaos. And so he, and they said that Nagash holds a grudge, arguably better than even the best dwarves.
Yeah, I mean, sure, because dwarves just die eventually.
Yeah, he has a long, slow simmer on his grudges. And that now he's had enough, and that he's been gradually taking over all the underworlds of Shyish. I thought that was really interesting, because we know that the one game is Age of Sigmar Underworlds, and this first one being in Shadespire, and we assume that like there could be underworlds like Azurheim or something. And in fact, that seems like underworlds are the categories for like the subdomains within the realm of Shyish. Is what they had kind of pinned down. And so if we have more underworlds, you know, like Shadespire style games coming, we may actually have more, they may be exploring more of Shyish. Nagash at this point has been basically consuming the gods of the death and conquering all of Shyish. And they talked about kind of the larger framing of the world, and part of how AOS designed was so that everything has a place to fit in. They never wanted their, you know, we've thought about this before, that they never wanted their sculptors to like come back with a sculpt and then basically say, no, it's not based, you know, like, you know, no, the lore won't allow this. And so, and that's how they started, was big and broad, but now they've been fleshing out, no pun intended, kind of the living, breathing spaces of the world. And that's a lot of what these small, like, short stories have been doing and going on over the last couple weeks, you know, in our entrance into Malign Portents. As for kind of the mechanics of this, like I said, it's going to be different than the campaign books. The story crops up in, it's going to crop up in all the AOS material. And we'll have a glimpse at different cultures and civilizations. Battle is a brewing on the realm of Shyish, and everybody is headed there. And we saw that in the videos of everybody is after. What we learned is that those skeletons were actually carrying, they were carrying, what is it?
Magic rocks, effectively.
Mortality sand, which is like vitrified realm stone. You know, they said functionally it's like radioactive in our modern language, and it causes people to decay. But what they're doing is bringing it to Nagash, and he's hardening this stone into glass. They said basically like shade glass, essentially identical, in fact, was their exact words. And he said he's making these huge monolithic blocks, and he's rebuilding his Black Pyramid, apparently upside down, floating in the air. And they said that was intentional. I suspect because they don't want Skaven slipping in. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, they figured it. Yeah, he learned from that problem. Like, you put the flat part on the bottom, you're just going to get tunneling right up in there. You better get that thing floating.
Yep. You know, he talked about how that this whole, then we found a little bit more about Sigmar and the flaw within Stormcast as well. He said that, you know, Sigmar knows that there's a glitch in Stormcast. He's known it from the beginning. And in fact, they said that Chaos had conquered 99.9% of the realms. And basically, Sigmar's hand was forced. Like, when Sigmar showed up, his hand was forced, and he knew, like, before him and Grungy could iron out the problem. So he went into this knowing that there was going to be a problem. And, like, and what they kind of alluded to is that, like, the Steelheart and those guys that are in Shadespire and the Shadespire Warband, they were part of a larger expedition that Sigmar sent to Shadespire to recover Shade Glass, or to research this to help potentially perfect this reforging process. And so they inevitably have a part to play. Vandus Hammerhand is going to come back, and he will have a part to play. He's having visions. We've seen him have visions before, but this is only increasing seemingly. especially with these portents that are arriving. So Vandus will have a place to play in this new emerging storyline. They said that Steelheart and the folks, Steelheart's companions and the folks in Jade's Fire will as well. Yeah, lots of stuff. Oh, we found out the Anvils of Heldenhammer had actually been taken, and they were exalted heroes of Shyish. And so, like the black armored, like grim Stormcast host, those were actually like Shyish folks that Sigmar has stolen away.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, there you go.
That's the big picture. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's so funny when I listen to the stream and they talk about stuff like the Mortality Sand and all this other stuff and Realm Shards and Shade Glass and all this. I'm reminded of how people used to write. If you ever watched the behind the scenes on Star Trek, okay, the way they would write Star Trek, like the writers, is they would write the plot in the dialogue, and then whenever they wanted to use like some technical word, like the Heisenberg compensators or something, they would just put in like brackets and say technobabble. And then that would go to some other person who would then like just create something that sounded suitably appropriate. And then they would go and that would be the finished script. I picture that being the same thing here.
Like MacGuffin. They're going and gathering MacGuffin material.
They're gathering MacGuffin material. It's completely irrelevant, right? Who cares what it is? None of that matters. It's whatever. Sure. Why not? Yep. Great.
So this could be Warpstone. Like functionally, like that's the space we're in, folks.
Sure.
Like.
And yes, Warhammer has a long history of weird MacGuffin rocks and metals and magic crap and whatever. Great. Good. Yay.
Urgold, Aether Gold.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all fine.
The list goes on.
Yeah, indeed. None of that matters. It's just all nonsense, and it's fine. It's just magic crap that's there to motivate the story. None of it matters. Yep. Okay. So so let's talk about where we think this is going. All right, let's trot out some thoughts. I want to give one other thing I want to shout out here real quick is the Malign Portents stories. So the second one released.
Tell us about the stories themselves.
Sure. So the first one was whatever. It was about a farmer and dead wife and
spoilers
and whatever. Yeah, it's about farmers. I won't whatever. It was interesting. The second one, spoilers for these stories, I guess, by the way.
There's one in the White Dwarf about Horticulus.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that one because it was boring.
Okay.
Personal opinion. Sorry, whatever.
Sure.
If you liked it, cool. Like stories are a very personal thing. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
The one though that they just put up on the website I found very interesting. I read through it yesterday and long story short, it's this. You've got a retired free guild guy. He's living out alone. Everybody else is left. He sees fires in the distance, grabs his repeater, crossbow. He's ready to defend his house. His son is super ill, sick, like coughing up black goo sick. That's probably not good.
Yeah.
Like in the world of things to do, you don't want to cough up black goo. Like that's just sort of a thing. And then he sends his son upstairs and he's like ready to defend the house. And he sees a shadow at the window and he pops off some shots. And then he goes to reload. And then the keyhole of his little cabin in the woods starts glowing and lightning starts ripping in through the keyhole. And he mentions that he thinks it's Nurgle doing it, like before this happens, right? It's some kind of rot. He calls them like rot skins or something like that. I don't remember. But at any rate, there's like lightning and stuff zapping through the door, and then the door blows off, and it's a big white armored death mask, Stormcast, and he looks down at him, and like the hammer is, glowing with lightning as the Stormcast walks in, and the story ends with that guy screaming. One would assume because he's dying, but I mean that's just an assumption. And so this led a lot of people to speculate, like, is this a tainted? It's a very interesting story because ultimately the sort of bad guy we get at the end is the monster that was in the woods that comes for this guy. Our point of view character is a Stormcast, right? So the question is, like, is the Stormcast a Deathcast? Is that giving away Deathcast? I don't tend to think so. So these are probably, it mentions white armor. It doesn't mention any other secondary colors. And what were we talking about? What's the name of the chamber? The Knights
Knights Excelsior, which like, let me just say, by the way, like, let's be very clear. The Knights Excelsior are not like the best of folks already. Like, they're the only Stormhost to have ever purged an entire city. Okay?
Sure.
So, like,
well, that's just it. That's how I read the story. I read the story as like, that kid was infected by Nurgle, right? Like, that seems to be the tread of the story. And so, like, it's portraying the interesting twist here to me is that in this pursuit of the destruction of chaos, some of these storm hosts are going to be willing to go to like fascist level extreme measures of like, extermination, right? Of anybody.
The Knights Excelsior are that. Right. Like it was in the City of Secrets, I think. They were afraid to tell the Knights Excelsior like what was going down, for afraid that they would burn down the entire city because Tzeentch had infested it with a cult. Like, I'm pretty sure that was City of Secrets that happened in. Like, they were afraid that they would catch wind of this because of the character of that Stormhost. So
yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's a wonderful little story, because not only does it show the lengths that they'll go to and how they could be portrayed as villains even in their pursuit of goodness, but also it shows an interesting distinction between them and the normal people. Like, how normal people could come to see the Stormcast as monsters, right? In certain circumstances. And it would be hard for them to distinguish the monsters with lightning shooting off of them walking around in this armor from the real monsters out in the world, right? To them, it's just it's another thing that is coming to kill them if they get tainted or anything like that. So I thought that was an interesting sort of take overall on the whole thing. I thought it was a neat story, because it could show like a split in. It could show why living people would side up with Nagash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to protect me from this lunatic and his super soldiers, his lightning wielding super soldiers, I'm in. Right. Like, over there, I've got this chaos who's killing my people and rotting them from the inside out. Over here, I've got this, psychotic, sort of like space wizard warrior who's willing to just go to any length to exterminate his enemies. What do you got? Like, so it's there's an interesting set of things there. All right. So let's talk about the general arc of where we see this going. You can touch on releases, stuff like that. So I started to mention this earlier. Chapter 1 of the End Times was Nagash. I don't think Nagash is ultimately what this is all about. I think Nagash is going to end up just being another. I'm not saying, by the way, that this beat exactly mirrors, ends up mirroring End Times. Yeah. At the very least, we've flipped Nurgle and Nagash, I suppose, to a degree, because Nurgle was book 2 in the End Times.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
and then Eldari, then Elves. Book 3.
Elves, yeah, book 3. Exactly. If the Skaven have got a big play coming right after that, look out. This isn't gonna end well again. No, I mean, I think that, like, what they're playing at here is something deeper that we'll discover as we go along, and they could trot this out for a while. So the first thing I'll say about what my prediction for Malign Portents is, this is going to go on for a while. Like, this is 2018. Okay. They've said it's a season.
The logo change communicates that.
Yeah. Like, they have they've talked about that it's a big deal. They've said it's going to go for a whole season. They haven't said exactly what that means, but, like, they don't mean season like spring or summer. They mean like season, however they define that. It's a sort of arbitrary term. But my guess is we're talking about the bulk of 2018 being taken up in this event. And as you said, it's going to weave its way through everything. So every army that releases this year is going to spill out of this narrative, right? Like, they're not going to do unconnected armies to this narrative.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, like, I would argue the KO weren't incredibly connected to any great narrative that happened at that moment in time.
No.
Like, certainly there were story elements they ended up weaving them into, but I would say they were kind of just, here they are, they're flying space pirate dwarves. Cool. Yep. Whereas now I think you're going to see a very tight correlation. So I would buy both the elves. My particular feeling is
both elves. Like, tell me what elves you're imagining.
I think that the Death Elf call feels absolutely correct to me. And that could happen because...
Do you think that is the Cthulhu Elf?
I don't know. That I can't... It's hard to say. Probably. Let's say yes. Let's imagine a world where yes. I don't have a strong call on this, but my instinct is yes. Although I don't know how, like, they're clearly the shadow, like the rumor this far has been they're the Shadow Realm, but that could just be us filling in the blank. They've never said that.
Right.
It would be just as easy to make them from somewhere else. My personal feeling is the grand sweep of the story is Nagash has a big play. Everybody else gets together more or less and is fighting against Nagash's play. Because we have that piece of art that literally shows like the other three heralds fighting next to each other. Like the order, chaos, and destruction fighting side by side against the host of Nagash. Yeah. So like, which I love, which is, by the way, why you would make the Chaos Herald the War Queen instead of like some demon or something, right? Or even something like a Chaos Champion like Archeon, because
it needs to be relatable.
Yeah, she's still human enough that, like, because she's basically a Marauder War Queen, that like the Ordinator or whatever, Ordinator, low Ordinator, that he could look at her and be like, all right, look, I hate you like I hate the fires of hell, but we're all going to be unfeeling skeletons if we don't stop this. So how about we don't kill each other for 10 minutes, we kill them instead, and we'll settle this when we're done. Right? Like that would be...
And that she may still be redeemable. Like if it's a demon, there's no redemption going on there.
Right.
But as a War Queen, like Sigmar could redeem her at the end.
Yes.
You know, she could get whisked up like Torglug did.
Somebody said, no, I'm laughing at the comments. No, I'm
laughing at Dooms' comment.
Doom, the why, I think hashtag why Nagash's pyramid is upside down. We got to shorten that somehow. I got to think about how we shorten that hashtag, but I'm liking all of the comments of why it's upside down. Yeah. The one, so I think the one that I like is, Hey, whoa, said he turned it upside down so the change falls out and he could put more money in the expand faction machine. There's no other better way to get the change out of your couch cushions. Like, imagine how many couch cushions Nagash has in that pyramid. You can't shake them all out. Just turn the whole pyramid over. That change will just rain down. So anyway, back to this. I think Nagash is the opening salvo. I think he's the opening gambit. I think that the way that you bring the elves into this is, I think you were absolutely right about them originally teaching him, right, their magic. Like they had this initial mastery of necromancy. So either they've rediscovered that and we have the reemergence of those death elves, right, as they come back into the story and make themselves known. Like they've been hiding on Shaiish. They're one of the factions on Shaiish. Because the other thing they said in the stream is that Nagash has been trying to get control of all of Shaiish, but he has not yet been successful.
Right, and they said that we may even see down the road. So this is the other thing that they mentioned, I just remembered, is that Nagash has collapsed what it means to be the god of death with a god of death / being undead with the realm of death.
Right.
And what we may actually see is folks like channeling Shaiish and, you know, part of that realm that are neutral or even good.
Yep. Exactly.
It's not just alignment with Nagash. Like, he's trying to make them synonymous, Shaiish. But the reality is that he was set back terribly when the Realm of Chaos, or when the Age of Chaos hit.
Yeah, and I'll say this, a neutral / neutral good death elf faction, whatever you want to say, like somebody who's more of that sitting in death would be amazing narratively, because right now Nagash's legions are pretty monolithically bad of a sort, right? Like none of these people are really on a redemption train. And so it makes it so they always have to play the bad guy in the story. Somebody who was more on the neutral side or was more willing to sort of take a moral gray space up would be really interesting.
Refreshing.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine, Nick, if you don't want me to use D&D alignments. Somebody who was more unscrupulous, you know, rather than say diabolic. There you go. I'll use Rift's alignments. How do you like that? Would be a good take, right? Because narratively, it's interesting what it does to the story, because they could be partnering with all sorts of different people all the time, depending on what's going on. And I think one of the interesting promises of the Age of Sigmar is that you can get weird alliances out of all these things, right? That the sides aren't quite as concretely set. as the mythological story that underpins the whole world shows. Whereas you said Sigmar and Nagash were like walking through the poppy field singing, let me tell you about my best friend. That's how I like to picture it. Like Sigmar flying along with his hammer right next to him, holding hands with like giant floating Nagash as they like skip through a sunny field. That's my image. And then I think after that, like what happens there is the true, like you're going to have a second fake lead that is short. Okay. Where another spoiler comes in and people think that's what the Portents is. And then I think the third time's the charm. Okay, because classically, narratively, you use 3 beats to reveal things. You got 2 head fakes in the real one. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I think that once you get to the third thing, and that's when you get the real thing. Could be like, Slaanesh could be the second trick, by the way. Like, if you did need to sneak Slaanesh in, if that was...
You sneak her in through, like, the death cults, or the Slaanesh cults?
No,
like,
she's the other
like a demon.
She's the other.
That's what I'm saying. Like you get a demon, or like so you get an update to the Slaanesh demon range, and you get the Slaanesh elves.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yes.
So exactly. And that's all of Slaanesh basically.
Yeah. I mean that. Yes. I think ultimately what this story ends with.
What is the final beat then? If Slaanesh is the second beat, what is the big reveal?
I have no idea. That's a 5th Chaos God.
Malal rolls in.
5th Chaos God. There it is. Like, why not swing for the fences? 5th Chaos God.
The Betrayer.
There you go. Sure, something, whatever. It could be a harken back to like Malal or whatever. Could be. I think that was. I can't use Malal itself because that's like copyright.
What is fear? Like, do we have a fear? Like, does fear fit into anybody's domain? Which is Portents. Like, Portents are inherently like fear based.
Sure. I mean, not that I can think of. Not in like these things aren't like concretely set.
Right, because they're tied to like human emotions. Like, sure. Right? Like in excess. And so I wonder if like,
yes, anger, lust, yeah, like I don't know. The Nurgle is super set into gluttony, I suppose, to some degree, but sickness, right? Fear of like that sort of death, and then obviously, ego, like Tzeentch's sort of ego and pride, right?
Yeah, and that's somebody mentioned like Cthulhu being fear, and so like, and the whole Portents thing is maybe driven by fear. So maybe that's the big reveal at the end: a new chaos god that is fear based. You gain a whole new like IP to play with. Boy, the Horned Rat will be pissed. Good.
I hope it kicks him out. I hope it kicks him out and puts him like they'll never do this. They will never do this. But Skaven need to be kicked out and put in destruction. Yep.
Like I'm taking my ball and going home.
You can keep Clan Pestilence. But yeah, I mean, it won't happen. But sure. But yes, I like it's got to be something big at the end of this road, right? Like that's maybe not to play the expectation game again, but yes.
Maybe it's spiders.
It's not spiders.
Maybe it's spiders. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the creeping, crawling spider thing. They're like, "Ha! Gotcha!"
No. Much like lupus, Tom, it is never lupus. Okay, so I mean, my point being is that like it's not going to be Nagash. We don't know. If it is, that's a terrible letdown. They've set this up like a mystery, right? Yeah. Like we have all these portents. Things are mysterious. Nobody knows what's behind it. But they've also said on the same hand, Nagash is doing all these things and he's going to take over the realms. Okay, well, that's not it. Then we already know who the bad guy is. His exact machination, who cares? Who cares what his exact machination is? That's literally the most uninteresting part of a mystery, right? The who done it, a who done it isn't called a how done it. It's called a whodunit.
And so maybe this is like when I'm talking about fear. Okay, so maybe, and so here's an interesting thing.
Oh, let me answer. Hold on, let me answer a comment real quick. Somebody said the 5th Chaos God is the Horned Rat. I am aware that the Horned Rat is in Chaos. Well aware. He is not, as I would call it, the 5th Chaos God. What I mean by that is like traditionally there are the 4 Chaos Gods. They all have the symbols. Archaon carries 4 Chaos God symbols on his shields. There are 4 gods of chaos. +1, the Horned Rat, who kind of hangs out there and like doesn't really belong. I'm arguing
he wants to be a god.
Yeah, like he's a god. I'm not saying that. I'm just arguing that like we would have a true 5th Chaos God. that the quartet becomes a quintet for real. Okay, as it was in the story 30 years ago. Because like it was a quintet at one point in time, right? That's what I'm saying. That we're going back to that beat. They can't use the same name, but they could hearken back to. I think your fear call is a great call. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and maybe Nagash is going to give birth to this. So let's point out, like, let's remember that that the gods are born out of emotion.
Sure.
Like, right? It's that excess of emotion, and maybe Nagash is tampering with this thing. Does that make sense? And he's tampering with these energies way beyond his know-how. And like, I wonder if the fear that he generates could actually spawn a new god. And so then it becomes this like self-birthing cycle. Where like that may not have been the intent, but that's the consequence. Is that now we have a new force, and maybe it's like maybe it's Marathi. Or maybe it's something like I could see us go for like a gendered, like, I know it sounds terrible, like we get all the social justice haters out there. Like, I could see us going for a gendered, like, mistress of fear or something like that.
Sure. I mean, traditionally they've played kind of fast and loose with that sort of personifications of the chaos gods. They're more force than than needing any physical form, right?
Indeed. But and so what I'm actually imagining is like, so we know that she was messing with like shadow demons, and we don't have a place to put those shadow demons. Do you remember that? Like, sure. in our little bit of Marathi, like she was that, like, the shadow demons were worshiping her. They were dancing around her. Do we remember this?
Yep.
Like, from the very first book. Like, that may have been pointing towards this. Does that make sense? Like, where's she been? Well, she went off and consumed some of Slaanesh essence, however that happens, when he grabbed her. And then now we have a fear god of chaos.
Yeah, I think it would be like, that would be a shakeup. Like, holy Moses, that would be a shakeup, right? Like, to have to introduce something on that scale, right? Now that would be a reason to like change your brand, to relabel everything, to say that the world has changed.
Well,
right?
And what's the enemy of hope?
Fear. Yeah, sure.
Right.
At least that's what Green Lantern told me one time. So I don't know if I believe him.
Sure. So there it is. Sorry, GW, if I spoiled your big reveal in 9 months to a year.
As we swing for the fences here. But yes, like, by the way, I think they'll end up touching every alliance.
Like fear/despair. You're right, Mickey. Like, that space right there. And like, having shadowy demons is something that Chaos doesn't currently have.
Sure.
But could easily fit in that demon space.
Yep.
And would be a great opponent to Nagash as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like, a chaos god who shows up and is like, you're treading in space that I own. You're getting too big for your britches here, right? Like, you were given power over dead things, but I will show you what fear truly means, right? Like, sort of like, what are gods afraid of? That's a potent concept. Like, you know what I mean? What does God need with a spaceship? I mean, that's the relevant question here. We all need to answer. So to me, I think that's a pretty compelling arc. Release wise, that then clears space for your elves, right? Yep. Because they can show up and be the Nagash interaction. They could have the Slaanesh interplay. You could have the Slaanesh release in there that still feels completely appropriate, right? And can tie into what's going on, like, it can tie into a 40K release, as all these like chaos releases do. That is the only thing that gives me pause on something of that magnitude. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
where does it fit? 40K?
Yeah, like when you introduce a new chaos god,
that goes
somewhere in 40K as well.
Yeah. And it comes out of that great rift that just opened up that nobody can explain in the middle of the 40K universe.
Sure, they did like rip a giant hole of chaos into the 40K universe, so it would be easy to sneak a new one in.
But well, the question is, like, how did that happen? No one really knows what happened with that rift. Well, what happened is in this other reality, a new chaos god was born, and it ripped the 40K universe in half as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with all that. Again, this is all like the worst postulation of swinging for the fences. So what else gets released in here? Then is the question, beyond what we've just said. What is the logical what's the logical release cycle?
Spider Fang Grots.
I wish I didn't agree with you, but there has to be some kind of like destruction release. And sure.
Spiders, creepy crawly spiders. Like they're scary, they're spooky. They show up at Halloween. I don't know. I mean, if let's say we're getting factions for everybody. Destruction. I think Moon Clan would be a low-hanging fruit. The Bad Moon. The Bad Moon is important, right?
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
so
to me, it's Moon Clan is what gets released because you could do a lot of interesting new things with Moon Clan, right?
The Rise of the Bad Moon.
Sure.
How about this? The Rise of the Bad Moon and Forest Goblins get rolled. Spider Fang gets rolled into Moon Clan.
Okay, sure. They don't need to be something separate. I mean, you could do that, sure. Yeah. To me, if there was going to be some destruction release in here somewhere throughout the Portents, then yes, the Moon Clan are the right answer. They're already tied into the narrative. They already have a portent type, symbolism and play. Yep. They're already they're classic visionaries. They're all hopped up on Looney Tune mushrooms, right? So their drug-addled brains would see things that other people do not. Like they're an easy one to fit in.
And they're a reimagining of the current like a current faction, like a much loved faction. So like they will have a natural following. And let me also point out that they were just on the stream. Oh, that reminds me. Somebody was reading tea leaves the other day and talked about and pointed out how like often things are like all tied together. Like the people who are like supporting GW or whatever. And somebody pointed out that of like the painting tutorials that Tyler Mangle has done for the community site, those painting tutorials that he's finished are the following factions: Death, Daughters of Cain, Moon Clan, Stormcast, and Nurgle.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's that maps pretty close to what this current season of releases is moving into. Like if they're gonna have painting tutorials of anything, like having painting tutorials for things that may be related to their next run of releases would make sense.
Sure, although I will say that feels real tinfoil hatty. I'm pretty sure they went to Tyler and said, "What would you like to paint?" and he gave some ideas. That would be how I think about it.
Or it could be a portent. Maybe we're just reading tea leaves here, or the bones as they were.
Sure. No, I mean, look, ultimately the problem with our swing for the fences idea is the 40K implications. Like that's the problem of because that single thing reaches into both worlds, it poses, here's what I'm saying. It poses the biggest challenge because now you have to account for it in 40K. I'm not saying you couldn't. I'm saying you have to. It's not a thing. They can introduce all the new dumb space dwarves and death elves and Cthulhuid spider riding, drug-addled goblin werewolf cats they want. Okay? Like that army can come out tomorrow and it's fine. Who cares? It doesn't require a larger product shift, right? Yep. But like a whole new chaos thing stretching into 40K as well requires them to like really plant a flag in both worlds that something massive has happened here, right? And to have model ranges in both lines that are fully effective and support them in both. And like that's a big move. I don't think it's an impossible move. God, I would love to see it. I would love it.
Let me say this. It's the bold kind of move that I've come to expect out of GW.
Well, they've been making some bold moves the past couple of years. Let me tell you that. Like, again, it would be great. Because ultimately, what I'll say is that obviously it's not Nagash behind everything. Or what I'll say is if it is, I'm sorely disappointed. GW needs to go back and learn how to do mysteries. If it is Nagash behind everything. If that's the ultimate story, just like Nagash is a big bad guy. He did some bad things. We eventually stopped him. Neat. Like, if that's how this all shakes out, then okay, cool. Like, I don't care. I really don't. Like you can tie some neat releases into it, and I hope it would give them some interesting flavor to the world. But if we just end up with him being the big bad guy, and then, you know, like some stuff occurs and everything just kind of goes back to status quo where we were beforehand, I would hope they learned their lesson from Storm of Chaos back in 2006. Which is stop doing big events that ultimately change nothing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And that doesn't seem like where they're going. They've made it very clear that this will have implications on the world.
Yeah, like, yes, I do something. Like, advance the story in a real way. If you're setting this up to advance, then make the world be different because of it, right? That's, again, like, okay, the first, like, 2.5 years ago, you swung too far. Maybe, right? Like, in blowing everything up. I don't need that again. Like, we don't have to destroy the mortal realms and start over. That's not what I'm at. It's not what I'm lobbying for here.
Here we go again.
Yeah, but that's, and also because that would, I do not under any circumstances think that's what the end of this road looks like. I really don't. But that being said, like, doing some real big narrative moves, stuff like that, is something that could be fun. I feel like we all got caught in the minutia of this and just like, yeah, let's have some big things happen every so often. It's cool when big stuff happens. Let's have a 5th Chaos God show up or something crazy like that, right? Let's have, like, whatever. You get my point. Like, something massive like that, right? Be fun. So is there another release that you think makes sense in the arc of this story that we've shot out here?
I still think we're getting Deathcast.
You still think we're getting Deathcast? Like, that's where you're swinging at.
I think we'll get Act 1 Deathcast.
Sure. I mean, if you were going to do it, they're the Act 1 release, right?
Yeah. Like so that would be a release that would drop like March-ish timeframe, right?
Sure. Yeah. It would come out before the elves and probably before they've confirmed the elves, just so it would drive everybody insane.
Yeah.
Although I don't know that it would really leave the death people. Like, I picture that meme with the 2 buttons, right? You know what I'm talking about, with the guy sweating, like where you said two exclusive buttons, and one of them would say new death models.
New death.
No, one of them would say like no new Stormcast, and say like one of them would say like new death released is Stormcast, is Deathcast. I don't know which one to choose. You know, so like, yeah, it really put you in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Sure.
And then that's so then you get a Chaos release mid, and then you get a Chaos release at the end with the big boom.
Sure. I mean, it would also be, that'd be a heck of a way to, when I think about that in the arc
go into
like,
Christmas.
Yes. So like, if I put on like my little business hat and think like, okay, I'm GW,
and we're going into November.
My stock price has been rocketing like just a freaking Saturn orbiter, right? But that can't go on forever because I'm not going to get the 40K bump forever, right? Like by the middle of next year, the 40K bump will have calmed down. I'll be into my next financial year. I've got to do something, and I can't just keep releasing. I will, but I can't just keep releasing Primarchs and hope they carry it. Like, Primarchs are just printing money, right? But like, we've got to do something, right? So they want to do some big thing that like generates a lot of conversation and discussion and shakes up both their properties. Releasing a whole new massive range like in November of next year of like a 5th Chaos God and all that stuff. Boy, would that move some needles, right? Like, if I'm the marketing guy, I look at that and go, yeah, let's do that. Can you make it? Let's do that. Because I don't, if I'm like that, if I'm put on like my purely crass marketing sales hat, I don't care about any of the crap you're talking about. Like, whatever, explain it however you need. That's your job. Make a dumb story that fits it. I'm just looking for how we sell this stuff, man. Right?
Yeah, and so then by the way, the transition is this. Out of that warp rift, the new Chaos God emerges, or whatever, like the forces. And that they start the story arc in 40K in January. So they kick off the next story arc Like, so the emergence of this new presence is what kicks off the new story arc in 40K.
Sure. Absolutely. That's good. It's good cross-marketing synergy, Tom. Now you're thinking. There you go.
You're welcome.
I like it. That's good. You know, I mean, I have to say that if I was gonna swing for any other release happening somewhere in here, it'd be great to fit some kind of Skaven thing somewhere in here somewhere, just because you've more or less paid them no mind. But I don't know at this point what they're like. They don't fit into Act 1. And I'm not sure they fit into Act 2.
No, they fit into Act 3.
Right.
They are pissed.
Yeah, because like having them be booted or affected in some massive way in the story then also clears your way to do a Skaven release, right? Which is something that 3 years in, they've never done a release for them in AOS. And it's a fairly popular race, right? So it'd be an interesting thing to touch and revitalize that line. And that could be very light touch, by the way. Yeah. Like it could be as easy as like a battle tome that reaggregates things in the same way that the Legions of Nagash tome does. It would you could literally go that direction.
Yeah.
Right.
The verminous hordes of destruction. As they depart chaos and go to destruction. I don't think that'll happen, but I
don't think so either, but God would I love it.
How
Get out of chaos.
It'd be like, we're out, deuces. You're not gonna let us be a god. We're out.
Exactly. Like the Horned Rat just he tosses the double guns and he heads over to the destruction side. Like I've always thought they were better agents of destruction than chaos anyways. You know? So yes, that would be I think that would be fantastic. They could reset up a new Council of 13. Also, let me say the reason I like the reason I like Skaven and Destruction better is the same reason I like Death Elves in Death. They're more narratively interesting. The problem in Death is that everything is like evil under one guy, Nagash, monolithic, and boring.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Like Nagash himself is interesting. The Mortarks are kind of interesting, and that's it.
Right. But they're all just puppets.
Below that, it's just puppets. Right? Like that's all it is. It's literally there's not interesting people standing around. It's just puppets below that. Other than like, you know, we have these occasional people pop up like the Knight of Shrouds or whatever. But Destruction has a similar problem in that it's all lunatics. Right? Like Destruction is just all Looney Tunes. Like Ironjaws and ogres and goblins and all these things, they're just nuts. Like, and I'm fine with that, by the way. I don't want to see any of that change. I love crazy drug-addled goblins, and I love Ironjaws and orcs and greenskins that just want to run around and smash and bash. And I love big, hungry, gluttonous ogres that just want to charge around and break things and eat everything. I have no problem with any of that. That is great stuff. But that's hard to do an interesting story with because that's very one-dimensional, right? Whereas Skaven would be cunning destruction, right? They're certainly a bit mad, but they're mad like a mad scientist mad. There's an order to their brain, right? Like they have rituals and processes they follow and this weird little hierarchy. And just like they're a much more interesting, insidious force of destruction. And I think that, again, that's why narratively they become very interesting when integrated into that faction. I don't think that would ever happen, but to me, that's much more compelling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is the called shot then we're going to get Skaven migrating to destruction and a new chaos god, the emergence of the god of fear and despair?
I mean, look, if we just swing for the fences enough, we got to get something right. And then we'll just pretend like we didn't make all these other predictions. And if we get anything right, we'll just call that. So yeah, it's fine. You just make enough crazy calls and you eventually get something right. And then we can just forget we ever said all the rest of the stuff.
So then let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What's your order release?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, more Stormcast somewhere, probably. Just crack another chamber open. Like, who cares? Does it matter?
Crack another case open.
Crack another case of Stormcast. What have we got in the fridge? Get them out. It's just like, it's no different. See how many, do we have another case of Coors in there somewhere? Just pop open a cold one. No, I mean, I don't know, man. Let's see what order fits in this. Okay.
I think I know what my vote is, but
go for it.
I think devoted to Sigmar.
Oh, like the normal humans have to rise up in response to the like the Stormcast getting trapped in this Deathcast thing and all this nonsense happening and normal people turning against Stormcast because of their extreme ways. You got to have the normal humans.
Yeah, you bring out the witch hunters. Like, who else is it? Like, we have exorcisms and we have all that stuff showing up and witches and scary, spooky stuff. Like, they need a comforting voice to say, no, Sigmar is good. We're here to help you. Now, I don't know if the fanatics are doing that.
Yeah, nothing says calming voice like the lunatics flagellating themselves and the guy with dual silver bullet pistols who really wants to talk to you very seriously about your midnight habits. Yeah, that's a
let me tell you the good news of Sigmar.
Right, at the barrel of a gun.
Yeah. No, I still think that, like, if there was a release and then they do like that with like teamed up with, maybe there's some Stormcast synergy there. Like celestial keyword is maybe something that gets latched onto, which is one of the keywords. Now, of course, obviously they don't have any problem rewriting keywords. We've seen this with Rotbringers. Rotbringers, all of those units in Nurgle just suddenly gain keywords. So we could see some keyword reshuffling, but it wouldn't surprise me if like it was more of a human element, which like even the Lord Ordinator, like the engineer, astrologer, mathematician guy, who feels more free peoples already, and there's lore about him working with free peoples. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that, where it is a Stormcast storm host, but it's not what you think it is. Like, it could be the priestly one. Does that make sense? And then that priestly one dovetails with devoted to Sigmar.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is if I had to swing for an order release, I would say that there's nothing currently in order that I like, joking aside of just cracking a chamber.
Yeah.
Which will probably happen anyways. Look, let's not kid ourselves, folks, okay? There'll probably be a chamber that opens at some point this year. Everybody just needs to make peace with that, okay?
We know the train that we're on, folks. Like, yeah, that's happening.
That's like saying, boy, I hope there's not a Space Marine release this year. Like, no, there will be. Probably just be okay with that. Like, because that's just going to be the world we live in. So your room just got very yellow all of a sudden.
I saw that, and I'm trying to figure out why.
The light shifted like just enough that your camera re-white balanced a different direction. The
Sigmar approaches.
Absolutely, yeah. So like we're gonna get one. Make peace with it now, okay? Or you can just scream about it on the internet for no reason. If you feel like shouting into the wind, knock yourself out. If it's somehow cathartic for you, do that when it happens. Know that it amounts to nothing, but that's okay. But that's not, to me, the interesting thing. That wouldn't be your catch thing. Like, that's I feel like their main line. It's the base thing. To me, if they're going to do an order release, then the real order release, by the way, I don't think it's devoted, but I do think it's humans. The human story tracks to me. And they've hinted before, like Pete had hinted at Nova that if you're interested in where the human story is going, that you will see something in the next year that will interest you. It was very much a read between the lines thing. They talked about the difficulty of cracking humans.
Do you think it's going to be Slaves of Darkness, Marauders?
I think the Dark Oath are going to become Light Oath? Is that what you're asking me?
I don't know. Like the Barbarian Hordes.
No, I don't. I think Dark Oath would be a really cool release, but I don't know if it'll ever happen.
I think that would be a good one-off set of kits, like a couple, like a small box thing.
Sure. Yeah. If we get enough focus, like, it depends on how much they want to throw release at the less successful product this year. Like, I don't know. Because again, it's always tough when they go, well, we can make a new 40K thing that's printing money, or we can make an AOS thing and it's printing less money. Like, that's a difficult place to be in from their business perspective. But that being said, No, I think that they've said they want to crack the human code. So the way we could get an order release that isn't Stormcast is by getting the gold faction. Okay. Like we've talked about the gold alliance, the gold faction before. I don't mean gold like the metal. I mean gold like the magic card where it's multicolored. And there could yes. So you could have a human release that is both order and insert whatever here. Right. Yeah. And that could take a lot of different forms. And that would be really easy to fit in this story as the normal humans keep being the grass that's trampled by elephants and don't eventually put up with it. Right. Or as we move our way out to the rest of these planes and start exploring other places. Right. And find some like light humans or something from or shadow humans or something from Ulgugulu or Haish or whatever. Like there's plenty of these realms we haven't touched yet at all. You know, that have like lots of wide open space of where we could just randomly have people show up from.
Like you could do something like some type of like empire within Shaiish and have it be like death/order.
Sure. Yeah. So like I think that I think if you the way you do an order thing in this is you split the baby. That is to say you do your Stormcast because you almost have to. You're compelled to at this point. Yep. You've picked your pony as far as who they put the statue out front. Okay, it's there.
We're getting Stormcast.
Like hate it all you want, it's still the statue in front of the building. And it has a big following. Lots of people play Stormcast and lots of people like them. So they're Marmite. That's what happens. Some people love them, and some people hate them.
And they just won the UK Masters.
Also true. But the point is that then you can do something more interesting in making the splashier, flashier, narratively interesting release of the year be the humans that people have been calling for, have them be part order, part something else. And that's the really sort of like super compelling one, right? And that would be easy to fit into this narrative.
Yeah, maybe.
There you go. That's my swing at the fences for that one. All right, we need to wrap this up. But any other calls you want to make here before we go, besides the return of Slaanesh?
No, I mean, I'm super excited. Let me just say that. I love what's going on with this death book. They're going to bring, they're kind of bringing everybody under Nagash, and they're kind of relaunching the death line. I think, I mean, it depends on how many, because I mean, like, what have we now hypothesized? We've now hypothesized like what, 6 factions at least?
Something like that.
Release.
Yeah. We've done a full year basically.
And we had 2 last year.
I mean, it depends on how you count.
Or 3. We had 3 with Stormcast.
Because I mean, you can count the Stormcast, the Blades of Corn, the Tzeentch book, the KO, right?
Okay.
Like, I mean, there's
okay.
So like, and that was obviously an off year because we know that stuff was.
It was an off year, and we had 4 within 4 months.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could see.
Yeah, compare it to the year before where you had like the Bone Splitters and the Beast Claw and blah, 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 right? And on and on and on. Like some books, some full armies, and so on and so forth.
So death. So let me get this right. So we have Nurgle.
Yep.
Nagash.
Which is just a book. So that's easy.
Which is just a book. Deathcast, maybe?
I'm still very iffy on them, but let's say sure. Let's count them for the moment.
Okay.
2 elves.
2 elves. So we have like which by the way could be your gold faction. Let me just point that out.
Also true.
So you have 2 elves, which could be something like
you've got your Cthulhuid elves and or your death elves.
Cthulhuid death, and then potentially Slaanesh elves.
Yep.
Slaanesh could to partner then as a single book with like a re-release of Plastic Demons for Slaanesh.
Sure.
And then potentially a human faction is what you're saying, like a gold human faction.
Yep.
And
your 5th Chaos God.
And 5th Chaos God.
And then possibly a Skaven book.
So 5th Chaos God. So of that, then we would have 6 real releases and then 2 book releases.
Yes. Sounds about right. Yep.
Because one of those was a Nagash book, one of those would be a Skaven collection book.
Yes, although again, some of these could pull on old figures, right? Like some of them could be more Iron Jaws style or Sylvaneth style, where they're using Yeah,
or even Beast Claw Raiders. I mean,
sure.
Beast Claw Raiders is just a full rehash.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not going to say no to that. Like, I think it's possible. I don't think it's plausible, but I think it's possible that they could go that far.
I will openly admit that it is like the rosiest of all pictures, right?
Yeah.
Because
it has clear overlap with 40K at a number of different points.
Yep.
So that continues to push that bottom line. Yeah. I like it.
It's splashy right around Christmas. The mystery actually means something. There you go. I mean, I'm sure we're completely wrong, but hey.
Completely wrong.
Yeah. 0% correct. But that's okay. That's why it's tinfoil hat time.
Cool. I'm looking forward to whatever the mystery is. I'm looking forward to the reveal. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I want to see as this all goes on. I want to see the world get built out, defined, changed, grow. I think that sounds fantastic. So I'm all in for it. But there you go. I think that brings us to the end. So Tom, any final thoughts you want to say? We'll talk as you mentioned. We'll do Nurgle next week after the battle tomes in the hands. Anything else?
If even a very, very, very small portion of this is true, this could be a really expensive year.
If even a small portion of this is true, you'll know because Tom and I will be touting it forever, like shouting from the rooftops at the start of the opening of every show when we're like, we were right. Oh my God.
You remember when we called a new 5th Chaos God was coming before the event even started?
Not going to happen, but I love the idea. I hope they do something that big. But anyway.
Again, it's going to be an expensive year, though. Like, if we get new elves, if we get a bunch of this other stuff, like, it's going to be a problem for me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, there you go, everyone. That's our tinfoil hat speculation. What's yours? Are we crazy? Do you like our ideas? Drop it down in the comments. Let us know what you think. We always love to hear from you. As always, appreciate you watching. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody who's participated, who was in the chat today. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.